All right, good morning, Miss Foreman's class. Today is Monday, August 16th, and today, for those of you at home, I want to talk about a new idea that we'll be learning today called cultural diffusion. So first, let's take a look at what we already know from the previous few days of class that really have been leading up to what we're going to learn today. We know already that culture in general is the set of beliefs, values, and practices that a group of people have in common. When we think about culture, we're thinking about certain aspects of identity that a group of people all share. We think of a lot of times like food or the way people dress or language when we think about culture. We also know that culture can be broken down into 8 separate smaller parts called culture traits. These are the 8 culture traits, and our list includes language, government, daily life, social groups, religion, history, economy, and art. So we've got culture in general, we've got our 8 culture parts, but today we're focusing on an idea called diffusion. And I want you to take a look at this red text, diffusion, and I want you to pay special attention to the part that is underlined. Diffusion, Diffus. I want you to focus on that particular part of this word and kind of where we see it happening over and over. When we think about diffusion, I want you to also maybe think about an essential oils diffuser. Some of you might think, oh, I know somebody at home that has one of these, or I have a friend who uses essential oils, or maybe this is something that you've seen in a store, but it looks a little something like this, right? It's something where we put water kind of in a small container. We put a lid on it. We drop a few drops of like scented oil into the water. And then as the water becomes warmer and it mixes with the water and oil turn into a mist that we see kind of coming out right at the top of this penguin that diffuses or spreads all throughout the room where the essential oil diffusers is. So in our penguin example, perhaps there is lavender essential oil mixed with the water in this diffuser. And the longer that this little penguin diffuser sits in this room, this mist mixed with the oil will diffuse the scent of lavender or spread the scent of lavender all throughout this specific room. So when we think of diffusing, I want you to think of this diffuser and the way that it spreads the scent of lavender throughout the room that it's in. To help you remember that to diffuse means to spread. To diffuse means to spread. When we are actually talking about how this works in social studies, we're talking about a specific idea called cultural diffusion. And there's our diffusion vocabulary, our new word, Diffus, is going to be that word part that we're seeing over and over. Cultural diffusion is the act of spreading cultural traits from one place to another. It's a process where different parts of culture from different places around the world are being spread to new places. So if we look at this map, we can see that culture from the United States or Mexico or Canada has spread to places like South America, Africa, and also even Asia and the Middle East and Russia. And the same thing happens in reverse. We know that parts of culture from Asia and Russia and Europe and all throughout the world have also made their way to the United States and Canada and Mexico and South America. All around the world, parts of culture traits, you could say, are being shared from one place and being spread to another. There are 2 specific types of cultural diffusion. The first is called contagious diffusion, and this is a word that you probably have heard of when we talk about illnesses or viruses being contagious in terms of how they spread and infect others, and also stimulus diffusion. So let's take a look at what these 2 actually mean. Contagious diffusion happens when cultural traits spread to a new place from person to person. But in contagious diffusion, the cultural traits do not change when they get to their new location. So we have an example here of Christianity in India. We know that Christianity first appeared in part of the Eastern Hemisphere in kind of the Middle East area, and we know that over time it has spread to other places around the world, for example, India. And we can see that people have fashioned Christian crosses as a symbol in this particular area of India to represent their religious identity. The religion, in this case, has spread to a new location, but it has not changed. We also see that stimulus diffusion happens when cultural traits spread to a new place, but the traits change in their new location. So, for example, we know that Burger King is a fast food restaurant that was founded in the United States, but now there are locations all over the world, such as Japan. But if we look at this Burger King burger, we notice there's something very different about it from the version of a Burger King burger that we have in the United States. We see that this bun is completely black, right? Something we've never seen on a Burger King menu here in the US. This bun actually has the flavor of squid ink because that's a cultural delicacy, a food that is popular in places in Asia, such as Japan. So they've taken part of the American culture from Burger King and included a change of their own. This is an example of stimulus diffusion, where a change has happened to the culture in its new place. So let's take a look at some examples of this happening in real life. Example number 1, missionaries spread Christianity into Russia over the course of time, over the course of history. After missionaries spread Christianity to this new location, the traditions of Christianity in this place changed, and Christianity in Russia became known as the Russian Orthodox Church. Is this an example of contagious or stimulus diffusion? So, I have to think about what is the difference between contagious and stimulus diffusion. And if I go back, I know that when stimulus diffusion happens, stimulus diffusion means change. The culture has changed. In this example, I see that Christianity has evolved into a new set of traditions in Russia called the Russian Orthodox Church. That tells me that a change has happened, and that therefore this is an example of stimulus diffusion. The Christianity in Russia changed to become the Russian Orthodox Church, something specific to that new place, but influenced by culture from other parts of the world. Let's do another example. Example number 2. TikTok was created in China. Now, the original app is being used by people all over the world, including the United States. And I'm sure many of us, perhaps even you watching this video, have it currently on our cell phones. Is this an example of contagious or stimulus diffusion? I have to think, okay, has TikTok changed from when it started in China to how it's being used all over the world? Has the app changed from how it started in China to the way that it's used now? And I know personally from using TikTok, and hopefully you do too, that it really hasn't changed. We see the original app, as it tells us in this example, is still being used by people all over the world. No change has happened, and that means that this is an example of contagious diffusion. The cultural trait did not change in its new locations all around the world. The app has stayed the same, even though it's being used in different places. So for your task today, after you finish this video, I want you to head to a Google form that is linked in this Google Classroom post that will be called Cultural Diffusion Contagious versus Stimulus, and it's going to look a little something like this. I'll have you put your first and your last name for me, and then I want you to use the information that we discussed in this video and that is found in our PowerPoint that is also linked here about cultural diffusion. I want you to use this video and that PowerPoint to help you answer these questions and determine whether these examples show contagious diffusion or stimulus diffusion. So take a look at these. If you have plenty of time at the end, if you're doing this at home and you've got plenty of time at the end, and you're like, ooh, Miss Foreman, yep, I've got this. I want to try something a little bit more challenging. I want you to take a look at question number 13, the challenge question. And I want you to tell me, what is an example of how cultural diffusion has affected your life or your cultural identity? Give me an example. Then think about, how might your life be different without that piece of culture that came from a different location, a location outside of Franklin, a location outside of the United States. So when you're done, submit this Google form with our purple submit button, and then I will be taking a look at your work and seeing how you did. Alrighty, with that, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me an email that is written out in my Google Classroom post for today, and hopefully I will see you soon.